Hello and welcome to episode 3 of your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, wealth dragon coach and CEO of the KML Group and Home Hug Limited. Same scenario. I'm just going to share this into a few places so I can get the maximum people online because I want you all to hear this message. And then once we've done that, we'll begin. We've already got someone watching. Just bear with me, guys and girls. We'll be done in a moment. As I say, I'm just going to share it to a few places before we begin. Say hi if you're joining us. Tell me where you're joining us from. I'm feeling particularly good today because I went to the gym. And after a lot of hard work, I improved quite substantially on something called the level method, where it's basically a CrossFit and it's a rowing test. And feeling really good, basically. Right, that's the last share, and then we should be good to go. Hello and welcome. So we're beginning episode 3 of why helping yourself is the most effective thing you can do in the long run if you want to help the world. This is the official Wealth Dragon podcast. This is episode 3 of your Wednesday dose of wealth wisdom with me, Daniel Kennedy, your host. So on the topic, I'm going to talk about my journey from where I was and where I am today. Initially, I assumed that people who are down on their luck, it was their fault they were down on their luck. And there's a lot of things that are out of our control, and how you react to them is the most important thing that you can possibly do. Be aware of, make sure you act in a positive manner, and stuff that isn't in your control, you just ignore. But some people can't do that. So when I was a couple of years ago, before I got into the self-help community, I used to judge people. I used to judge people who took drugs all the time. I used to think, you're taking drugs, you're ruining your life, and then you're going to have no prospect because drugs always get you. They destroy you. And then what changed for me is I went on operational tours to Afghanistan. I went on Herrick 7, 11, 16 and Octal. So I went there 4 times. And the first couple of times I used to judge the Afghans for having such a shit country. I used to think, why are they not protecting? I would never do the things that they do. I would never, but it's a different culture. But as I went back more and more and more time, what I realized is that we're all just a collection of experiences. So I'll say that again, we're all just a collection of experiences. So this, and the reason, really defining moment that discovered this, I used to deal with the Afghan National Army quite a lot when I was over in Afghanistan. And the first couple of times that I went, they were useless. But on the 4th time, when I went to Octal, I was just walking around the camp and the Afghan National Army were guarding the camp. So it wasn't to do with British National Forces or American forces. It was Afghan National Forces. And just the standard bloke on the gate, I was speaking to him and he said he really appreciated what ISAF were doing. And ISAF is basically the coalition that help in Afghanistan. And his metaphor was so amazing. He said, Afghan It's like sand. It's like wet sand, and it's very unstable, really, really unstable. And for a long, long time, it was American, British, Australian, and ISAF forces holding the sand together. And the sun's rays are education. And the longer that this sun is shining on this sand that is the stability of Afghanistan, the harder it's getting more stable. And now what he's really proud of is that it's Afghan National Army holding the country together as they get more educated. And like 2007, 2008, when I first went, no one would have said that. No soldier would have said that. But in 2014 or whenever I went, 2015, we had just a random bot saying that. And that really, I thought about it because it really was such a different experience to what my first thing happened. My first experience of Afghanistan happened. And I realized because he'd been around us and he'd been educated by the sort of like the barracks, the way British military get trained, he's had a different collection of experience than his predecessors. And so he now has a different outlook in life. And how does this apply to property? You're thinking this is a massive tangent. Well, when I used to judge people in my home city or my hometown of taking drugs and be really, really against it, I would cut people out. And you've got to realize that if I had those collection of experiences that they had, I would be doing the exact same things as those people. So I'll say that again. So we're all just a collection of experiences. So the ISIS terrorist, the real sort of like slave to his addiction, homeless guy, myself, who I would consider myself pretty stable and disciplined, we're all just a collection of experiences. If the person who's shooting up heroin had the same experiences as me, he would be exactly the same person as me. Just like if I had the same experiences as that person, I would be doing that. So fortunately, the parents, because you have no control over who your parents are, I was raised very well, so I went on a different path. But when you're trying to help people, the reason why the topic's why you need to help yourself first is because I came across a gentleman who was on the street, it was really, really cold. And last year in Birmingham, UK, we had somebody who died in the cold. And I thought, that is absolutely atrocious. And immediately I just wanted to try and help as many people as I possibly can, because that's what you do when you're empathetic. And then so I decided it came out the cinema, really cold, another gentleman in the cold, not much in the way of warm kit. So I decided to put a post out there to see if anybody would want to help, and we could collate our resources, any spare resources, and maybe help this gentleman out. And a few people said, what if you care about the homeless, this is just a temporary thing. Why don't you expand it out? Why don't you try and help as many people as you can? And my response was, you need to help yourself first. Because if I was to throw all my energy into the service of others now, there's probably little impact that I could do in the long run. Whereas if I continue to work on myself and work on the business and keep expanding, keep growing, increasing income for myself, in a future date, when I've got more time, when I've got more resources, I can have a much larger impact upon the world, or whatever, for instance, cause that I want to put my name to, be that ending homelessness or trying to help reduce poverty. So for me, when you're stepping out on the journey, and if your why is to help other people, spending time on expanding your own business with the future goal of maybe wanting to set up a non-profit or put a couple of $100,000 into a charity, it's not a selfish thing to do for you to focus on your business. And for the time being, just bite your lip. Even though you have these resources and potentially you could have really, really great short-term impact, it's not going to be sustainable. So this little gift that I'm giving to this gentleman that I'm going to meet on Friday, fortunately, we've got a whole range of things for him. It's going to be a short-term fix to a long-term problem. What he needs support, accommodation. He needs to be able to come off the drugs. He needs a safe environment. He needs like a cage that lends to his great side. He needs an experience where he can feel he can get off the drugs, as opposed to an experience where he needs them to cope. And me diverting my resources away now from expanding my own business and focusing on that to try and raise finance, although I'm in an okay position now, I could do a lot more and for a lot more people if I continue to expand KML Group and work for the Wealth Dragons. And there was a lot of back and forth with some people. Why don't we pool our resources together? And you can do that, but again, I'm going to say you need to focus on yourself, because imagine in 5-6 years' time, if we keep growing at the rate that we do, I'm going to have so much more influence. I'm going to have so much more resources, and I'm going to be able to do things a lot cheaper than I would be doing now. In terms of, say, if I wanted to provide homes and go down the non-profit route and take people off the street, I'm going to need to invest time in psychologists. I'm going to need to invest time in having people come and chat to discuss their addictions. And that's going to take an immense amount of time. And really, you can leverage people and you can pull your resources together, but you're going to need a lot of influence and money. And that only comes after you've worked on yourself. Same with everything in business. You have to build credibility, because no one's going to take you seriously if you just set out. You have to have a proven track record of results. And how are you going to do that if you have no resources, no influence, but just a good heart? And great, we need more people that care. But if you care, you need to work on yourself, get yourself into the most powerful position, put the hours in. Don't put angry posts on Facebook. Actually think of a plan of where you want to be in 5 years, 10 years time, because you can do a lot for one person. And for the moment, that's what I'm planning on doing. But if you want to help millions, help the world, change the world, you have to work on yourself. You have to be somebody that someone's going to listen to. You have to live the life that some people want to emulate. Because the people that want to change know this, and you'll hear me say it so many times. You are the top 5 average of the people you spend the most time with. You are the top 5 average of the people you spend the most time with. If you agree this, comment below. If you've experienced this yourself, let me know the experience. I'd love to hear from you. So you have to be somebody that people want to be around. And how do you do that if you've got like a horrid addiction, or you've got a horrid something that's holding you back? The chances are you're going to have somebody who's going to do it pro bono. So for example, me and the gentleman that I'm going to spend time with, he's going to adopt some of my habits just by purely spending time around me. And I'm going to adopt some of his. That's how it works. But because I'm more aware of it, I'll try and push away the bad ones. And hopefully in months and weeks' time with constant contact, he's going to change his ways, because at the minute he's a complete slave to his addictions. And I'm not going to help the world. That's not going to happen. I'm going to help his world, and I'll start by one person at a time. And then I am definitely going to scale it up. And once I get more influence, I have more resources at my disposal, and then I'm able to build up more contacts. I can then have a much larger impact on the city, because I know you've seen it too. Everyone has seen it. Homelessness is absolutely insane. I've seen it year after year. It's just exploded. And when you chat to these people, most of them want a conversation, or they're slaves to their addictions, as I say. Excuse me one moment. For me, it's very ad hoc. I never wanted to really help anyone. But slowly, as I've become around people that are more empathetic, that's rubbed off on myself. I always thought you are the architect of your own world. It's your fault that your life is crap. But there are some circumstances that would completely blindside people. So I was speaking to this gentleman, and he split up with his missus, couldn't really cope with the stress of being kicked out. Came back from work one day, was made homeless, essentially. Came back to Birmingham, had a few savings. That got burnt through, and then turned to drugs. And then it's just the downward spiral. And when you have people around you that sort of like watch you and enjoy you failing, and they don't pull you or hold you to task, they don't call you out on your bad behavior, you can just spiral and spiral, and you can't get out of it. And the only way you can get out of it is being helped up. Very few people get out of it alone, if any. And I'm not speaking from experience. This is my outside view. You need to create experiences for that person, for them to have reference experience on what is good behavior and what is bad behavior, as well as recognizing when somebody does bad behavior, that you need to know that that's bad and not let it be absorbed within your decision-making process. For example, I went to purchase a van, and somebody I've spent a long time with. We discussed finances. We really hashed out the what I thought was the mindset to get rich, because it's a mindset. It's not, you've got a business, you've got this. It's the knowledge and the mindset is so much more important than anything, that any asset that you have, any income producing asset that you have now, because you'll lose it if your mindset's not right. So I thought like this was down to a T, and we had option one, van, 60,000 miles, 5K. The one that I bought, 2007 or something, and then a 2015 van with 200,000 miles. And without a shadow of a doubt, I was always going to go for the one with the low miles. But I just out of curiosity, I asked, which one do you think? And I was completely blindsided by this after spending a couple of years with this guy, hoping that he'd got sort of like the psyche of you need to live frugally, invest your money, expand your wealth. He said, let's go for the nice van. Let's go for the nice shiny black van. And I was like, my goodness. So even after you put all that effort into somebody or spend all that time around you, there might be stronger influences on that person. And that's just one example of how you need to be aware of what's good behavior and what's bad behavior. Because if I had that van with the 200,000 miles, I'd only have it for a couple of years and then it would break, where the one I've got now is going to last me a decade. And I'm going to save money, and which enables me to invest more, which means which enables me to get more influence, which enables me to have more resources, etc. And it's all a cycle that feeds into itself. And if I want to, at the end of this, and I want to help loads of people build wealth, or I want to help people get out of the cycle of poverty, because it's a cycle. You need a helping hand. You don't tend to just wake up one day and you're like, your mindset has changed. It happens over a gradual, slow process. This is good. First time I've had a green tea, and it's now cold, but it's keeping my throat moisturized. Thanks, Joe, for joining us. Very true, mate. What was very true? Show them good also to regain faith. All right, someone needs to go back to school. Agreed. Good point. Well done for helping the man. Thank you. The goal is to help more people in the future, but I recognize that I can have a much larger impact when I can totally dedicate myself to that, as opposed to doing half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, and splitting my time and energy. So the focus for me is going to be expand, gain loads of influence, bring it to light, the problems that people face, because there's always I've found already there's great charities out there that are doing the work. But I also feel like I add something to these just by the people, not giving them a bed, not giving them food, but just by them, something that's even better than all of that. And that is them being around me and them adopting some of my habits. That will change. That will have ramifications on their life much greater than a temporary fix of a free bed. Because I use myself as an example. I didn't want to have anything to do with the financial world and in my own business. I didn't want anything to do with that. I was happy with my lot in life and my 9-to-5 job. Obviously not quite 9 to 5 in the military, but doing what I was doing on the career path that was laid out before me, something that I wanted to do from when I was young. I never entertained the idea of changing it. And then just by being around other people, and why my friendship group changed was because the military was going to pay me money to learn Chinese. So I started to learn Chinese, and I got loads of Chinese friends, and the conversations were different. They weren't talking about what we did Friday, Saturday night. They were talking about different investment vehicles, different ways of making money, talking to me about keep your life frugal so you can invest more, create more wealth for yourself, and then have a better sort of existence. And it happened slowly but surely, and now the course of 4 or 5 years, my life has completely changed. And I know that will happen for other people if they adopt my habits. The habits that I've picked up from others, I haven't created these habits. Let's be clear. I am a complete hodgepodge of different people of who I've invested my time in by reading and watching their videos, making sure that their content is what I'm surrounded with. Like you can see behind me there, you've got Donald Trump, Art of the Deal, people like that. Reading those books, ingesting that sort of psyche, because it is mindset. It isn't, he's had a break or he's a lucky break, because luck is just opportunity meets preparation. And having a real strong why, I think, is a benefit. And if you want to change the world or you want to help the world in some way, be that by making them more progressive, or whatever you're planning on doing, working on yourself is the quickest way to change the most lives. And you know what that means? It's going to mean you're going to have to make some hard decisions. It means you're going to have to walk past the homeless people sleeping in the street, because you can't afford to divert your attention. You can't afford to divert your business path. And that, I know it's really harsh. You can volunteer some time and allow other people who have dedicated their whole lives to doing it to take up the slack while you work on yourself. But example one, say if I stop now, I stop the deals, all the money that I start raising, I put it into a non-profit organization, and I would probably be able to create a couple of HMOs, and with my time change a couple of dozen lives, which wouldn't be a bad thing. It wouldn't be a bad thing. But now think in 5 years' time, if I was so inclined, I would have, for example, we're doing 6 HMOs this quarter, the next quarter, and that's basically doubling our portfolio. Imagine if we double it a couple of times. I'm going to be able to do 4 or 5 additional HMOs, as well as systemizing the business each year for the homeless. I would be able to do 4 or 5 instead of just doing it once. I'd be able to repeat the process. And if I got rich enough, powerful enough, had plenty of influence, I would get paid from the council, maybe set up some types of resources to help as many people as possible, get volunteers involved, because it'd be more influential, more powerful, more able to employ people with multiple resources. Show the person who is struggling good experiences and the people, so they can regain their faith in their own life and possibilities. Absolutely, yes. That is what I'm talking about, by giving them an experience. And that's more valuable than giving them something monetarily. I really, really believe that. If you're wanting to help people, give them your time. Give them your, give them an example of how life can be. And sometimes that's just sitting with them and not saying anything and just listening, not being judgmental, and then perhaps just explaining how you would deal with a problem that they've come across. It's so important. That's why these programs that people get involved in are all about giving a positive experience. It's time. Time is the most precious commodity that we have. It's the one thing you can never buy or buy back. So when you give someone your time and you give them that experience of maybe they shouldn't do this, or maybe they can fight the addiction, or maybe they can chat about why they're taking the drugs, I think that is so much more important than anything you can give them monetarily. So in my circle, there's a lot of people who are trying to help others, and that's really, really commendable. So I'd be really interested to know if your why is to, for example, a gentleman said it was to provide accommodation for veterans or homeless, or help improve the lives of people in Zimbabwe. I've heard that mentioned. It's really imperative that you work on yourself, and you should be working harder, faster than the person who's doing it for themselves. I'd be really interested to hear if your why is to help other people. Let me know and tell me why you want. That's your why, for example, for you to gain wealth, and hopefully you get a bit of exposure for it. I hope I've answered all the questions that people have asked and the conversation that it generated. And if you have anything more to add, please comment. And thank you for joining.